I'm coming to you again from another hotel room while I'm on the road doing one-on-one personal spiritual encounters. Of course, remember, you can always meet with me at our beautiful new ministry center in Phoenix, Arizona. Go online, call, find an opportunity in your schedule, make time to have a face-to-face confrontation with issues that you may never have dealt with. Our goal is to help you get free, stay free, and live free. I want to speak to you about a very disheartening situation that happened recently. Perhaps you're aware of Willow Creek Community Church in the Chicago area, where for decades Pastor Bill Hybels has been the dean of megachurch pastors. Before there was a Rick Warren, before there was a Joel Osteen, there was Bill Hybels. He built a religious empire. More than 20,000 people in 7 campuses listened to him every single week, and he hobnobbed with presidents. Now all of that lays in ruins. It's very sad because several women have come forward alleging sexual indiscretions, and there has been investigation and documentation of it, forcing him to be removed, his entire church staff and board of elders to resign this once great church. All of this led to an article in the evangelical journal Christianity Today. It was basically entitled, "How Can So Many Pastors Be Godly and Dysfunctional at the Same Time?" It was a great article. I encourage you to read it, and it should be must reading for every seminary student or anyone interested in going into full-time ministry. But I think they should have changed just a little bit the direction and the title of the article. It should read, "How many godly pastors and spiritual leaders can be both dysfunctional, godly, and demonized?" This whole issue of demons is something that needs to be brought up here because, you see, preachers are Christians and Christians can have demons. And we've talked about this repeatedly in our School of Exorcism and our books. And not all failure of pastors, not all those who fall, are victims of burnout and lack of psychological balance. Many of them have been targeted by the spirit of Jezebel, specifically targeted. In our book, Jezebel, Defeating Your Number One Spiritual Enemy, describes how you can prevent and defeat this spirit of Jezebel from accomplishing this sort of thing. I'd like to ask a couple of fairly basic questions. First of all, how many men and women of God studying for or ordained to the ministry have any understanding of the sins of ancestors and generational curses? Secondly, how many of these who are preparing for ministry or are engaged in ministry have dealt with the sins in their lives and the demonic open doors before their Christian confession and coming to Jesus? The answer is very few. We have today people who are ordained to ministry with spiritual strongholds still in their lives that can come back to haunt them later. Our International School of Exorcism talks about how in the early church, before men were ordained to ministry, they had to undergo several arduous, lengthy exorcisms before being considered capable of carrying on ministerial responsibilities. Today, to make such a suggestion would be heretical and considered unbiblical. I'm very sad at what happened to Bill Hybels. This is a man who had many wonderful works for God, and unquestionably, there were many who were saved and their lives were changed because of his ministry. But we have to face the fact that men and women of God do sin, and they fail, and they are in need of healing and restoration. We are all imperfect vessels. However, my purpose here is not to lay more guilt on the fallen, but to get the church to recognize the importance of spiritual warfare and the understanding that sometimes demons are at work where we would rather not admit it. Unless there's a greater understanding of how the devil attacks churches and pastors, we're going to have more victims, not just of psychological dysfunction, but also of undetected demons. And that's a tragedy that must be avoided.